Good afternoon. My name is Arie Belldegrun from UCLA. It's my distinct honor to introduce to you today our keynote speaker, Peter Schulam, MD, PhD. He is the Chief Scientific Officer of Johnson & Johnson MedTech, Head of Global MedTech Regulatory Affairs Organization, and co-chair of J&J's Data Science Council. Well, Peter and I have shared a history here at UCLA. As a fellow urologist, Peter and I spent countless hours partnering in the operating room, where his expertise in minimally invasive surgery, robotic and telesurgery was honed, and for which he has since achieved national recognition. On the academic side, here at UCLA, Peter served as the Henry Singleton Professor of Urology, Vice Chair of the Department of Urology, and as the Chief of the Division of Endourology and Minimally Invasive Surgery. In 2012, Peter bid farewell to Southern California, at least academically, and headed to the famed East Coast institution, Yale, where he chaired for 8 years the Department of Urology at Yale School of Medicine. Innovation and collaboration had been and remain cornerstone of Peter's illustrious career. During the tenure at Yale, Peter co-founded the Yale University Center for Biomedical and Interventional Technology, in addition to serving as the director of the Tsai Center for Innovation Thinking and as the interim director of the Yale Cancer Center. Over his career, Peter has demonstrated how being passionate, innovative, bold, and willing to take calculated risks can be transformative. And this is essentially an essential mindset for us all today, including this conference. Now at J&J, Peter continues to lead and develop real-world policies, practices, and technologies that improve the outcome and experiences of patients worldwide, while enabling healthcare professionals to perform more accurately, efficiently, and safely. During this 2020 fifth MedTech conference, as the first one at UCLA, I can think of no better one to share his wisdom, experience, and vision with this community. So please join me in welcoming a phenomenal researcher, innovator, collaborator, and my good friend, Peter Schulam.
When Arie was speaking, it reminded me of a story. And Arie, as you know, is an incredible innovator and entrepreneur. And I remember talking to him one day, and he said, Peter, he says, all you need is letterhead. If you have letterhead, you exist. And I've never forgotten that. And I've used that at Yale, and I've used that, which is true because you believe in something and you make it happen. Anyhow, thank you very much for having me. Arie, thank you very much for the invitation. Matthew, you're somewhere out there. Thank you very much for the planning committee and LABEST. So what I thought about doing is I'm trying to think about what I can do. And I spent some time on the phone with Matthew, I could describe and share with you and things that I've learned. And what I realized when we were on the phone together talking with the team at LABEST is that I thought about my career journey. And actually my career journey very much matches the journey of innovation for MedTech. And I think of it in 3 horizons for myself. One is clinical, one is academic, and then now industry. And so what I'd like to do is just walk you through that journey that I've had and just share with you what I've learned. Good or bad, these are just my thoughts. So just to start with, this is my clinical journey. So as Arie mentioned, I trained as an MD, PhD. I was in the medical scientist training program at Baylor College of Medicine, trained in immunology. I thought I was going to be a medical oncologist or a transplant surgeon. But as soon as I went into the clinics, I loved surgery, went to Hopkins and was very fortunate to be there in the early 1990s, right around when laparoscopy took off. Worked with Lou Cavusi, who had done the first laparoscopic nephrectomy in the world and subsequently the first laparoscopic donor nephrectomy in the world. So I was hooked on this whole innovation, new technology, and went to UCLA, and Arie mentioned what I had done here. And then I went on to Yale and then started CBIT as well. So from a clinical perspective, and it's so simple, but it seems to be forgotten so often in med tech design, is that the clinical pull is the most important. If you're not solving for an unmet need, the solution is probably not going to work. And it's not that technology is not important, but if technology is the sole source of the push, it's not going to work. It's really best when you have a combination of the two. And I can't think, I'd like to tell you many, but I have many examples in which over the years, companies have brought us devices into the operating room to get our feedback, and it didn't fit the workflow. It didn't fit the ecosystem, the microenvironment. Great technology, but unfortunately would not work. And those all lead to failure. So that is number one. It's so simple, but that is the nucleus of all innovation is the unmet need. So then now Horizon 2. Horizon 2 now is going into academics. And so what I shared here with you is that I was always interested in med device design from an academic perspective. Part of the team, we founded CASET here at UCLA, which I believe still exists, and then CBIT at Yale. Both very similar. It was just looking at the innovation cycle from an academic perspective. So on your right is a diagram from a paper we published in Academic Medicine in 2019. It was in conjunction with MIT. We had some team members at CBIT who also were part of the MIT team. The CIMIT team there is a consortia for improving medicine with innovation and technology. Great team. And this 10-step process really or parallels the Department of Defense technology readiness levels. So that's kind of where it comes from. But what we realized is that if you look at this, each step along the way, so you start with the unmet need and you walk the circle clockwise, as you do this, there's increasing investment in resources that's required. And the worst thing that can happen is you get to the end and there's no market desire for your product, which happens often. And the question is, why does that happen? And number one, buyers and users are not necessarily the same. Think about our world today. It's all based on consortium purchasing, value. You know, when I came to UCLA, I remember putting a list in for both capital equipment and disposables. They got me whatever I wanted. Now, when I was at Yale, you used what we had. So it's a completely different environment. And the other is that as you walk around, and I would say that this is the biggest mistake I've seen in academics when you're looking to design a device or innovate, and I was at fault for this as well, is that you focus too much on the technical and you have that drive yourself around the cycle. And what happens is, again, you get to the end, there's no market desire for several reasons. So what we realized in our program, and this is again in agreement or in association with the work that was being done at MIT, you need to assess in the center is critical. You have to look at the clinical needs. You have to look at the market and business needs of your product. What is your market access, health economics? You need to understand your regulatory and then the technical. And at each one of the 10 steps, you should not move to the next unless you've addressed all four. And I would say that's the mistake, because I think sometimes people go on this cycle too far before they start looking at those center elements, those facets that are critical for success. So that was my takeaway. That's what I learned in the last 20 years. And I see this now in industry as well, because even in industry, we sometimes fail to think about those four when we're evaluating a company or looking to share in some innovation. So this is the third horizon. My third horizon was going to Johnson & Johnson. And I will tell you, this was not planned. I got a call about 5.5, 6 years ago from J&J, and they said, would you be interested in a position at J&J? I literally laughed on the phone. I was a tenured professor and chair at Yale. I literally could die in that chair and they were going to pay me every year because I've seen it. But I realized I was too comfortable and I wanted to feel uncomfortable again. And I took the job and it's been phenomenal. But what really has helped me understand this whole innovation cycle is that what I just showed you on the previous slide only gets you so far. But then you have to scale your innovation in a reliable manner. Your product, your device has to be safe, it has to be effective, and it has to be compliant. You have to think of things like manufacturability, gross margin. You have to think about quality, supply chain, all things that as an innovator you forget about, but all that helps you scale your product. So to me, this has been an incredible learning experience. I have 800 regulatory leaders around the world that report into me. I know nothing what they do, but I've learned an amazing amount over the last year. I underestimated what it takes for a product to be brought to market, but more importantly, to stay on market. Things like Utamed, UDI. It's unbelievable. There's another requirement from the European Union just recently called PPWR, Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulation. We're going to have to spend probably $5 million this year just to keep our products, which, is about $4 billion worth of products on the market in Europe. So it's mind-boggling, the responsibility, and helped me understand why a stapler made out of plastic and metal costs $400. It's not the plastic and metal. It's all this other regulatory requirements and compliance, quality, and safety that we had to follow. So let me tell you a little bit about J&J, because I think this is important for you. How do we work with innovators around the world? So we have what we call internal innovation and external innovation. So internal innovation or organic innovation is really coming within, and then inorganic is external innovation. So how do we partner externally? So early innovation partnering, accelerating early stage innovation through strategic partnerships. So we do a lot of work with universities, Johns Hopkins, University of Michigan, USC, hopefully soon UCLA, Arie. And we just did something with the AUA recently. We did what's called a quickfire challenge, gave up $300,000 for them to look at bladder and prostate cancer. And we hired a third party to administer the funds over the next year, just to help incubate and accelerate some of the work on areas that we're very much interested in from an innovative medicine standpoint. Incubation and acceleration. So we have 11 J-Labs around the world. These are institutions. Some of them are virtual. Some of them are actual real estate, where we work with innovators early on. There is no equity sharing. We're here just for expertise and mentoring. Venture investing, and Baron Mehta's here. I think somewhere, he can raise his hand. There he is right there. So he's one of our team members, and he did some work in JJDC, now works in BD. So JJDC is interesting. So it's Johnson & Johnson Development Corporation. Since 2015, we've invested $3.4 billion around the world in startup companies. And so this is an incredible arm, and I'm going to give you an example of that in a minute. It is the oldest corporate venture capital arm in the world. It's 51 years old. Incredibly cool, run by Chris Piccarello, reporting directly into our CFO. And then late-stage partnerships, basically licenses before potentially we do acquisitions. So here's a JJDC, an example of how industry can help entrepreneurs. So just imagine it's 2015. JJDC is sitting there and looking, and we're surveying the whole world, and we find this company, V-Wave. And so let me just orient you on the top of the slide. So on your left is a cross cut of the heart. So you have the two atrium up top, and then you can see the device on the right. It's literally a shunt that crosses from the left to the right atrium for heart failure. Cool device. And if I told you the things they're thinking about in the future for this, it's amazing. So we heard of this company. It had been established, now it's 2015, 6 years earlier, so 2009, so it was a 6-year-old company. What do we look at? Strong leadership, medically and clinically. We felt as though this was differentiated technology. It had procedural synergy with one of our business units called Biosense Webster, which is focused on atrial fibrillation and ablation for AFib. So a lot of work with EP, you're in the cath labs, so fits in the portfolio. Substantial market opportunity because heart failure was a fast-growing area, so greater than 5%. And here, more importantly, they had begun to de-risk the technology for us because at this time, they had 26 patients who had had this device implanted. So we had reason to believe. So what did we do? We made an initial investment into their $28 million Series B in 2016. 2018, we did a follow-on investment in $70 million Series C. 2020, follow-on investment into a $68 million Series C. And then in 2023, we had a convertible note. And then in 2024, last year, we acquired them for $1.7 billion. So that's the path for all of you. So one of the things I've learned, when I first joined J&J, I used to say, I'm on the dark side. jokingly, because many of you are academics, some of you are venture capitalists. But what I've realized, you need both. Industry needs academia, academia needs industry. Academia is really the source of those unmet needs. Industry provides the scale and the reliability to bring things globally to market. So I'm going to leave you I only have 2 more slides. I'm going to leave you with 3 ethos or guiding principles that I've lived by. One is, and I've already mentioned, be comfortable being uncomfortable, because only great things happen when you're in a position of being uncomfortable. I look at Arie, I think he's a great example. He's constantly pushing himself, doing things that are outside his comfort zone, but only great. You will fail, but hopefully in the end of the day, sum total of more successes than failures. The other 2 I've learned over the years. One is be inclusive, not exclusive. Bring people around the table. Sometimes you kind of, should we invite? If you think about it, do it. And this third, and probably the most important, is don't worry about ownership. Both those institutes I just talked about that I was involved in founding, everyone was taking responsibility or claiming that they had found it. It was their idea. And I learned, you have to let that go. Don't worry about ownership, because the biggest impediment to getting to success or to getting something done is worrying about ownership, because it creates a battle that's not necessary. And at the end of the day, as I tell everyone who's way younger than me, at the end of the day, everyone will know who did the work. It may not be right away, but you will get the credit you deserve. So my last slide is this. I want to remind all of you why we're here. 250,000. About 250,000 patients died per year because of medical errors. This is why we're here. To me, the greatest unmet need in all of medicine is the variability in outcomes. It's unacceptable. And what we need to do is begin to solve this. I think of this, and the way I think of it is in form of an equation. Outcomes equals judgment times skill. And we came up with that when I was at CASIT almost 24 years ago. And the reason it's a product between skill and judgment is we all have seen surgeons or physicians who have great skill and poor judgment, bad outcome, and vice versa is true. So what we need to do as innovators is innovate and bring products to market that augment skill or enhance judgment. Therefore, we improve the standard of care. What greater responsibility is there than for us to impact lives around the world by elevating the standard of care for everyone? Thank you.